The movie starts off with a woman named Dana waking up and quickly doing all the household chores. Long divorced, she is a single mom who tries her best to keep her teenage son happy. After finishing up with her chores, Dana goes to her son, Arthur's, room and tries to gently wake him up. Incredibly groggy, the latter just asks her to go away. Dana simply smiles at that and urges him to get ready for school. Arthur rolls his eyes at this and begrudgingly wakes up. He then takes his time getting ready. Moments later, he starts to eat his breakfast whilst also reading his favorite comic. When Dana sees this, she immediately asks him to put his comic down and hurry up, since she has a meeting that morning. It turns out that Dana is a teacher at Arthur's middle school. Hence, the two always get ready and leave together. As Dana continues to explain about her faculty duties, Arthur comes up with an idea. He tells her that he'll just walk to school, but Dana instantly turns him down. She then asks him to live by a certain schedule. In response, Arthur simply scoffs and even suggests she read his comic. Upon asking why, he says that the characters in the book get to do a lot of things that he would never be allowed. It turns out that Dana is a very protective mom who sticks to a tight schedule. Furthermore, she is always very careful about the things that she says and does. Because of this, Arthur starts to get distant with her. He hates that Dana pushes her own fears into his life and doesn't even let him walk to school alone. At work, Dana talks to her colleague about Arthur's behavior. Concerned, she explains how her son might not even like her. Even though 13 is the age where children slowly start to pull away, Dana expresses that Arthur always acts angry and disinterested towards her. Upon hearing all this, Dana's colleague, Julie, who's also a middle school teacher, just smiles. She then urges the latter to loosen up a little and even asserts that her protective behavior is the main reason behind all this. Eventually, Julie asks Dana to come over for a girls' night out, since she's always so stressed. She explains that the two can just be free and even come up with a way to tackle this problem. Dana, however, instantly refuses and says that she has signed up to chaperone the upcoming school dance. Julie then asks Dana to come over tonight so that they can go to a nightclub and have fun. Once again, Dana refuses. Since she works off a schedule, she refrains from doing anything that might disrupt her lifestyle. She even swore off of dating after her divorce, which immensely annoys Julie. After realizing that there's no convincing Dana, Julie just gives up and heads to class. Dana also does the same and starts teaching math. Since spring break is coming up, she assigns homework to the kids and then lets them go. After class, Dana immediately goes to Arthur, who had been planning to ask his crush, Tabitha, out for the upcoming school dance. However, just when he's about to approach his crush, Dana walks up to him and pulls him away. Not just that, she also ends up accidentally embarrassing him in front of Tabitha. As expected, Arthur gets extremely irritated and storms away, which again confuses Dana. At home, Dana looks at all the adventures she and Arthur could go on for spring break. Whilst doing so, Arthur comes home from soccer practice. Dana instantly lights up and hands him a glass of water. She then apologizes to him for humiliating him in front of Tabitha. Thankfully, Arthur forgives her, and the two start chatting. Mid-conversation, Dana suggests that the two go on a hiking or camping adventure in order to bond. Sadly, Arthur seems disinterested at the idea and just heads back to his room. This causes Dana to stress out, so she goes back to finding something that Arthur might like. Eventually, Dana comes across a family camping trip with lots of activities. She thinks that it's the perfect way for her and Arthur to spend time together, so she immediately books it. Dana then goes to a nearby convenience store to get all the necessary items for camping. There, she bumps into the store's owner, Steve, who appears to be a little too cheeky and sarcastic for her liking. Furious, she berates him for being disrespectful and storms out of the store. A while later, Dana returns home with all the things necessary for the camping trip. When Arthur sees this, he runs up to her and asks her what she's doing. In response, Dana tells him all about the camping trip. Since Arthur had no idea about this, and Dana planned it all herself, he gets annoyed and goes back to his room. Meanwhile, Steve, who is also facing the same problems as Dana, books the family camping trip as well. It turns out that he has also been having communication issues with his teenage daughter, Lacey, after his divorce. In order to reconnect with his daughter, he proposes that the two go somewhere far and have fun. However, Lacey just scoffs at her father and begs him to leave her alone during her spring break. Both Dana and Steve convince their respective children about how the camp has great activities. They go on and on about bonding and spending time with family. Eventually, Arthur and Lacey hesitantly agree to their parents' ideas, since they have no other option. Both of them are incredibly skeptical about their parents' plans and complain about how they had plans of their own. It's evident that these two families have the same exact problem. Moving forward, Dana and Steve both drive towards the camping site with their children, whilst discussing all the things that they'll get to do. Upon reaching their destination, the two find out that their camping sites are right next to each other. As expected, the two start bickering the moment they see each other. They try to maintain distance, but somehow always end up at the same spot. At check-in, Dana talks to the staff there about her experience with camping, and even expresses that she wants to spend as much time as she can with her son. She then goes to her tent location, only to realize her neighbor is none other than Steve. Despite being annoyed, the two try to be as cordial as possible. Later that night, all the families huddle together for S'mores night. There, the camp instructor, Beverly, informs everyone about the rules and regulations during camping. She then asks them all to always be careful, since the place has a lot of bears roaming around. Additionally, Beverly also tells the parents that their longtime camper, who's none other than Steve, has donated a brand new canoe to the camp. Hearing this, all the parents applaud him. However, Dana just stares at him with confusion and admiration. Shortly after, all the parents go back to their respective tents. Dana takes this opportunity to approach Steve and asks him if they can start over, as they obviously got off on the wrong foot. Steve readily agrees and introduces himself politely. Dana follows suit and strikes up a conversation with him. Whilst talking, Steve notices just how uptight Dana is and suggests that she take things easy. Unfortunately, the latter gets offended by this and instantly storms away. The next morning, Dana tries to start a fire with 2 sticks. She goes on and on for quite a while, but ends up failing miserably. Seeing this, Arthur tries to help her. Meanwhile, Steve, who had been observing her for quite some time, just smiles at her poor attempt. When Dana notices this, she gets even more annoyed and tries to prove her skills to him. On the other hand, Steve, who's incredibly easygoing, starts a fire with his matchstick. Now shocked, Dana asks him as to why he just watched her try to start a fire with sticks when he had matches this whole time. In response, Steve laughs and tells her that he didn't want to interrupt her schedule. This further angers Dana, so she starts to yell at Steve. Thankfully, that's when her sticks light up, so she gets distracted. That night, Dana and Arthur have hot dogs and spend some time together. The two slowly get closer, which makes Dana incredibly happy. Whilst talking, Arthur urges her to sing a song in the upcoming talent show. The latter tries to refuse, but after some kind words of encouragement from Arthur, she decides to give it a shot. After some time, the two head towards the recreation center for s'mores. Whilst there, Beverly approaches Dana and asks her to loosen up. She even says that there's quite a lot of single fathers at the camp. Hearing this, Dana just laughs and says that she's not interested in dating. Beverly, however, simply ignores her and tries to set her up with a guy. She urges the two to have a conversation and walks away. This leaves Dana in a very awkward position. On the other hand, Steve, who has had no progress with Lacey, approaches the latter and tries to strike up a conversation. Unfortunately, Lacey ignores him and continues reading her book. She's angry at her father for forcefully taking her camping instead of letting her go to her friends' parties. Steve tries his hardest to bond with Lacey, but is sadly left disappointed. In the meantime, Dana tries to strengthen her bond with Arthur. Seeing as the two are getting closer, Arthur tells her that he really wants to try the rock wall at the moment. However, Dana, being the overprotective mother that she is, changes the topic instantly. As expected, Arthur gets really irritated and walks off. At midnight, whilst Arthur and Dana are sleeping, the latter hears strange noises. Now scared, she immediately looks outside and spots a bear. As expected, she panics and wakes Arthur up. The two then run towards Steve's tent for help. There, Dana nervously tells Steve that there's a bear outside, which instantly causes a ruckus. Infuriated, Lacey yells at her father for putting her in such a dangerous situation, while Steve looks around to ensure their safety. That's when he notices the bear going inside Dana's tent. It turns out that Dana accidentally left food outside her tent, which ended up attracting bears. Steve berates Dana for being so careless, and then hands everyone a set of utensils. He then asks them to create noise in order to chase the bear away. As they all start banging the utensils, Steve walks out to chase the bear away. But much to his surprise, a small raccoon runs out of Dana's tent. When Arthur inquires about the incident, Steve tries to tell the truth, but then he sees Lacey's proud face and simply decides against it. Later, when the children are asleep, Dana thanks Steve for his help and starts to warm up to him. Steve also gets comfortable with her, so he tells her about the increasing distance between him and Lacey. He explains that he divorced a year ago, and since then, Lacey had been really cold to him. Not only that, she had also lost interest in school, and the fact that she just started high school didn't help either. Dana completely understands Steve and comforts him. She even compliments him for being so brave and carefree. She then shares her own struggles with parenting, which helps the two to really connect. Slowly, Dana and Steve start to get closer to each other. The next morning, both Arthur and Lacey express that they want to go geocaching. So once again, Steve and Dana are stuck together. However, instead of bickering, the two decide to team up and play together. In geocaching, the team has to roam around the woods and find the secret treasure. Whilst Arthur and Lacey track the coordinates to the treasure, Steve and Dana follow them and try their best to be involved. They walk for quite a while until it starts to rain. All four of them take cover under a tree and wait for the weather to get better. During this, Dana strikes up a conversation with Lacey, while Steve starts to bond with Arthur. Without even realizing it, Dana motivates Lacey to get better at school, and Steve also gets Arthur to open up and express himself. Soon after, the weather gets better, so all four of them continue on their journey. However, they end up getting lost and have no idea where to go. When Dana realizes this, she begins panicking and talks about how they could get attacked by bears. Thankfully, Arthur calms her down and pulls out his fitness tracker, which helps them find their path back to the camp. Amidst all this, Lacey spots the treasure and looks inside to find a couple dice. She happily takes it, and soon everyone heads back to camp. Whilst walking back, Steve and Dana get really close and slowly start to realize their feelings for each other. Later that day, Dana goes to a yoga class while Steve and Arthur go rock climbing. Steve makes sure that Arthur is safe and continues motivating him. Just when the two are about to reach the top, Dana spots them and immediately rushes towards them. She tries not to panic and focuses on encouraging Arthur instead. However, Arthur loses his grip and slips a little. This makes him incredibly nervous, and he tries to give up. But Steve urges him to push through, and as expected, Arthur gets to the top and celebrates his victory. He then slowly gets down and instantly apologizes to Dana for rock climbing without her permission. Instead of being mad, Dana praises him for being so brave and even urges him to continue being adventurous. This causes the two to get a lot closer, and Arthur starts to feel comfortable with her. Shortly after, Arthur goes back to his tent to practice his guitar. After making sure that he's gone, Dana approaches Steve and berates him for being so careless with her son. She then storms away without even giving him a chance to explain. Back at the tent, Lacey approaches Arthur and tells him that he's really good at playing his guitar. She urges him to continue, and Arthur happily obliges. That very night, the camp's talent show commences where Steve performs an unsuccessful but hilarious magic trick. Still angry, Dana just observes him quietly, but Arthur cheers him on. He then reveals to Dana that Steve never even asked him to go to the rock wall. Instead, he was the one who begged Steve to take him. Hearing this, Dana feels bad for yelling at Steve. As the talent show continues, Dana starts to feel confident, so she offers to sing. She walks up to the stage and sings the Pie song, which gains her a lot of applause. Seeing his mother sing, Arthur feels confident as well. He walks up to the stage and performs really well. Everyone loves his music and cheers him on. Shortly after the talent show, Dana and Steve bump into each other and start chatting again. Halfway through, Dana apologizes to him for misunderstanding him. Steve forgives her, and without thinking, hugs her awkwardly. Dana reciprocates, and the two quickly realize their feelings for each other. However, they're unable to confess it out loud, so they just bid each other goodnight and walk away. Feeling confused, Dana approaches Beverly and tells her about Steve. She confesses that she really likes him, but doesn't know what to do since they're complete opposites. In response, Beverly urges Dana to let her feelings take control. She then asks Dana to stop being scared of heartbreak and just be open to whatever happens. Dana agrees to this and decides to let things flow on their own. The following morning, while Steve and Dana are talking, Lacey approaches them and says that she wants to try horseback riding. Steve readily agrees to the idea, so the two get on horses and prance around. They then go to an arts and crafts class, where Dana and Arthur are also present. After some time, Lacey tells Dana that she wants to talk about something. The latter readily agrees, so the two go somewhere private. Once there, Lacey reveals that she stopped studying because she thought smart girls weren't popular in high school. But soon, 6 months passed by, and now she is behind in all her subjects. Frustrated, she explains that she doesn't know what to do anymore. Upon hearing this, Dana just smiles and tells her that there are a lot of smart girls who are popular as well. She then asks Lacey to focus on what's important, rather than listen to people who are pretentious. Eventually, Dana even gives Lacey some tips and tricks to study well, which helps the latter realize that she's stronger than she thinks. Steve soon learns about Dana helping Lacey, so he approaches her and thanks her for the help. He then tells her about his struggles with understanding Lacey. Dana hears him out and then confesses about her own problems with helping Arthur. The two soon realize that they have very similar problems, so they decide to sit down and talk things out over lunch. They feel really excited as they both plan to confess their feelings for each other. However, their happiness is cut short when Steve's ex-wife, Robin, shows up unannounced. Immediately after walking into camp, Robin introduces herself to Dana, which absolutely crushes the latter. Whilst trying to stay calm, she directs Robin towards Steve's tent. When Steve sees Robin, he's shocked and asks her what she's doing there. Robin replies by saying that Lacey kept texting her, so she came by. She explains that she took a break from her conference to pick Lacey up, and even apologizes to him for overstepping any boundaries. Before Steve could say anything, Lacey shows up and is surprised to see her mom there. Despite being bored initially, Lacey says that she has come to enjoy the camp, so she doesn't want to go back home. Robin understands this and decides to go and stay at a hotel for a couple days. However, Lacey stops her and asks her to stay with them instead. The environment gets really awkward as Steve becomes unable to refuse his daughter's request. With no other option left, Dana asks Robin to stay with her and Lacey. She then asks Arthur and Steve to share a tent. With Robin showing up, Steve and Dana decide to keep their feelings hidden and pretend as though nothing ever happened. A couple of hours later, Steve, Dana, Robin, Lacey, and Arthur all go to an archery class together. It turns out that Robin is really good at archery, whereas Dana is absolutely horrible at it. Seeing Robin get so close to Lacey and Steve makes Dana a little jealous, but she tries her best to get a hold of herself. In order to calm herself down, she runs towards the woods. Steve sees her heading towards the forest, so he follows her and asks her if she's okay. He then clarifies that there's nothing going on between him and Robin. Hearing this, Dana says that Robin is a very successful woman who is good at everything. She confesses that she's a bit jealous and doesn't know where they stand anymore. Eventually, Dana and Steve talk about their unsuccessful marriages and end up realizing that their way of thinking is quite alike. They talk about the pain that they endured and in a way get really close. They're about to kiss, but Dana pulls back and walks away after making a vague excuse. Back in her tent, Dana feels heartbroken and sheds a few tears. Unable to handle herself, she asks Arthur if he wants to leave the camp. Arthur replies by saying that he's enjoying himself and doesn't want to leave anymore. Dana doesn't want to let her feelings get in the way of her son's happiness, so she decides to stay. In the evening, Dana goes for a stroll around the camp. Robin joins her moments later and asks her if she's okay. Dana replies that she is. That's when Robin asks her if she likes Steve. As expected, Dana is caught aback and doesn't know how to answer. Robin then says that the two of them would be a really good match. She also clarifies that her and Steve have been separated for quite a while now. Hearing all this, Dana feels elated, but also confused. Robin then tells Dana that she's going back to a hotel for some time. Before leaving, she asks Dana to give Steve a chance and wishes her all the best. Shortly after, Arthur rushes towards Dana and begs her to rock climb with him. The latter hesitantly agrees, and so the two have quite an adventure together. Dana tries to quit, but Arthur asks her to push through. Finally, she manages to get to the top and rings the bell with excitement. After their adventure, the two decide to get some hot chocolate. As they're sipping on their drinks, Dana asks Arthur if she has ever held him back. Arthur replies by saying that she has. Dana apologizes to him for being way too scared and urges him to continue being brave. Meanwhile, Steve also tries his best to understand Lacey and give her the freedom that she wants. He watches as she talks to a boy of her age, visibly excited. The two talk for a while and find out they're in the same school. They then chat about their interests and hobbies, which makes Steve really happy. The boy soon leaves, so Steve walks up to Lacey and tries to strike up a conversation. He then apologizes to her for not listening to what she wants. Emotional, he tells her that he'll always love her and be there for her when she needs him. Hearing all this, Lacey feels really happy and starts to bond with him. The two get along really well, and their relationship gets a lot better. At night, whilst Dana is watching the stars through her telescope, Steve walks up to her and tells her that he loves to stargaze as well. The two talk about their favorite constellations and have a light-hearted conversation. Steve quickly takes this opportunity to tell Dana that Robin is getting remarried. He goes on to say that he's really happy for her and actually feels liberated by the news. Dana soon realizes that this is the right moment for her to confess her feelings, so she tells him that she feels really good around him. Steve replies that he loves her company as well. The two then embrace and kiss each other passionately. Since it's the last night at camp, Dana asks what will become of them after they leave. She was planning to date him, but it seems that Steve had other plans. After hearing her question, Steve reluctantly tells Dana that he wants to take things slow instead of rushing into a relationship. As expected, Dana is heartbroken by this, so she just walks away without saying anything. She rushes into her tent and starts packing up. She even asks Arthur to pack his stuff so they can leave early in the morning, right after the camp bonfire. After getting their things ready, Arthur and Dana head towards the bonfire, where Beverly bids farewell to all the campers. She asks them to take back happy memories and wishes them a very wonderful life ahead. They then cheer loudly and go their separate ways. The following morning, Dana and Steve load all their belongings into their cars. They steal glances at each other, but do not say a single word. Meanwhile, Arthur approaches Lacey and hands her a bracelet that he made. He then thanks her for being nice to him and asks her to always remember him. In response, Lacey simply smiles and gives him her phone number, so the two can always remain friends. Finally, they bid each other goodbye and part ways. Dana is about to leave, but that's when Steve approaches her and tries to apologize to her. However, Dana cuts him off and tells him that she's fine with his decision. She then hastily bids him goodbye and drives away. Whilst going back home, Arthur thanks his mom for taking him to the camp and even suggests they go back next year. Dana is elated to hear this and readily agrees to the idea. Soon, everyone goes back to their normal lives. Dana continues teaching at the middle school, where one of her students hands her an assignment on probability. In the assignment, she talks about her chances to meet her soulmate at the upcoming dance and explains that even if she fails at choosing the right person, she'll always have a fresh chance to start over. This comment makes Dana realize that giving up on love or being too nervous to ever get close to someone isn't the solution to her problems. She starts thinking about Steve and feels really bad with the way things ended. Just then, Julie approaches her and asks her if she's okay. In response, Dana tells her everything that happened at the camp and confesses that she has fallen for Steve. Meanwhile, Steve can't stop thinking about Dana either. Seeing his condition, Lacey urges him to just call her and work things out. However, the latter refuses, saying that he already blew his chances. With a solemn face, he asserts that Dana will not trust him again. Back at Dana's home, Arthur tells her that he wants to invite Lacey and Steve over for dinner. Dana refuses, but Arthur insists and even asks her to go out with Steve. He exclaims that it was pretty obvious that the two liked each other. Dana doesn't know how to reply, so she just awkwardly walks away. After realizing that their parents are just hopeless, Arthur and Lacey decide to take matters into their own hands. They plan to bring Steve and Dana to the school dance so that they can meet in person. Later that evening, Dana and Julie chaperone the dance whilst talking about their own experiences in middle school. In the meantime, Arthur finally musters up the courage to ask Tabitha to dance with him. Thankfully, the latter happily agrees, and the two enjoy themselves to the fullest. When Dana sees this, she gets really excited. Just as she's watching them, Steve comes up from behind and asks her to dance with him. As expected, Dana is shocked to see him. She asks him what he's doing there, to which the latter replies that he wants to make things right. He confesses that he can't get his mind off of her, and the only reason why he avoided her is because he was scared to get his heart broken again. Steve then tells Dana that he wants to be with her, without thinking of what lies ahead. Dana gets really emotional after hearing this, and embraces him tightly. The two then head onto the dance floor and sway to the music happily. Seeing this, Arthur and Lacey celebrate their victory, and watch as their parents find the love of their lives. The movie finally ends with Dana and Steve happily dancing around, madly in love with each other.